The civil rights movement is in full swing. The Greensboro sit-ins are sweeping through North Carolina in 1960. Martin Luther King Jr. delivers his I Have a Dream speech in 1963 to thousands of Americans who rally in our nation's capital for human rights. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 outlaws discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Despite these progresses made in civil rights equality across the nation in the 1960s, the South still largely marginalized African Americans. An area that was largely overlooked during this time was the racial inequality in collegiate sports. In the now famous 1966 NCAA National Championship basketball game, this discrepancy became nationally recognized as Texas Western coach Don Haskins started 5 black players against Kentucky's all-white starting lineup and won, the first team ever to do so. The significance of this victory goes beyond a small school with no previous history in the championship, defeating the team with 4 national championship titles under its belt and the number 1 ranked team in the country. At a time when the Southeastern Conference didn't have a single black player, when many of Texas Western's new recruited white players had never even seen an African American, and when racism still ran rampant throughout the country, Don Haskins paved the way for racial equality in collegiate sports. The victory opened the collegiate basketball doors to African American players throughout the country, including the South, and proved that black players can effectively play organized basketball without needing a white player to lead them, as was previously considered to be true.
That they could play structured basketball, and the players that we had were good kids, and also were smart and very very talented basketball players.
Don Haskins, nicknamed the Bear because of his robust build and harsh manner, started out as a high school basketball coach and then received an offer to coach at Texas Western College in 1961. The school had little funding, and so Haskins accepted the job for less money than he made coaching high school and had to live in the men's dorm with his family. Prior to Haskins' arrival, Texas Western had 3 black players already, which was unusual for the South, but largely due to the fact that Texas Western was a small school and had not been significant in college basketball. The players were not controversial at a time when they would have been anywhere else in the South. El Paso, therefore, had a very tolerant environment that allowed Haskins to integrate more black players onto the team, eventually recruiting 4 over the course of 4 years, making the total of 7 African Americans on the team. Throughout the time Haskins was head coach, he consistently started 5 black players. It only made a significant impact when Texas Western played Kentucky because it was the championship game, because Kentucky started all white players and at the time didn't even have an African American player, and because Kentucky was considered the favorite to win. However, it wasn't always easy for Haskins to start his 5 best players. He had received hate mail since the beginning of his college coaching career in 1961, but didn't pay any heed to it. He received death threats as well that Haskins admitted scared him, but still he continued to play his best players, and his team continued to win, defeating some of the top-ranked teams in the country. One of their most formidable opponents was the University of Utah, whose star player, Jerry Chambers, was seemingly unstoppable until Don played his white player, Jerry Armstrong, who was exceptionally good at defense. This allowed Texas Western to win and advance to the championships. The Texas Western team ended their season with a 28-1 record, losing only 1 game to Seattle, a great feat for any team, let alone a team from a small, underfunded school that not many people had heard of before the championship game. Throughout the season, Don Haskins displayed leadership in how he brought the team together. According to Dave Palacio, a reserve guard on the team at the time, race was never an issue among the team. The way Haskins treated everyone equally and didn't see color allowed for this positive team dynamic. Furthermore, he displayed leadership in how he taught the team. Many players had only the experience of street ball, and Don taught them how to mentally play the game and play a strong defense, which Haskins is famous for emphasizing. The championship game was held at the Cole Fieldhouse in College Park, Maryland, on March 19, 1966. The stands were packed. The Kentucky fans yelled derogatory phrases at the Texas Western team, and somewhere high in the bleachers a Confederate flag waved. The crowd, the NCAA officials, the referees, the coaches, the cheerleaders, and almost all the sports writers on press row are white. It was a heated game with Adolph Rupp's veteran championship team as the favorites and the Texas Western team fighting hard. The Texas Western team played their most structured, organized, and intelligent game yet and won with a 72-65 victory. What a piece of history. If basketball ever took a turn, that was it, said Nolan Richardson, one of the 7 African Americans on the team in 1966. As Neville Shedd scored the free throw that put Texas Western in the lead, people watched in disbelief as the 5 black players scored point after point, with player Bobby Joe Hill stealing the ball from Kentucky time and time again. With their victory, the team erupted into celebration as their families celebrated along with them as they watched on TV at home. However, not everyone was happy for the new champions. The Texas Western victory was so disapproved of by the hosts that a ladder wasn't supplied for the team to cut the net off the hoop, as was tradition. But this did not inhibit the team's exuberance, and Neville Shedd lifted up Willie Worsley so he could cut it off. Don Haskins' legacy lives on in the way that college basketball is changed forever and is now dominated by African American players. Between 1966 and 1985, the average number of blacks on college teams jumped from 2.9 to 5.7, and today 52.7% of collegiate players are African American. Even beyond the collegiate level, professional basketball was likewise influenced. 76.3% of the NBA is composed of African American players. As a result of the 1966 victory, the Southeastern Conference had many teams admit African American players, as well as the Southwestern Conference. In fact, although Kentucky lifted the ban on admitting black players in 1963, the first team to do so in the Southeastern Conference, it actually did not have a black player until 1969. Another result of the win was Don Haskins being accepted into the Naismith Memorial Basketball Hall of Fame in 1997 as a basketball coach. His 1966 team was nominated in its entirety to the Basketball Hall of Fame on September 7, 2007. The significance of this game impacted African Americans across the country, as Don Haskins himself acknowledged in his book, Glory Road, when he states, "No matter where I travel, people come up and thank me for starting 5 black players. I'd be somewhere, decades later, and all of a sudden a black man would come up to me and want to shake my hand and thanks me because after the 1966 game, schools throughout the country began integrating, and he got a scholarship somewhere because of it." So inspirational was Don Haskins' legacy that Walt Disney Productions wanted to make a movie about his 1966 team and their transformational journey. The movie titled Glory Road was based on the book itself and was released in 2006, further proving that what Haskins did was still impactful and recognized decades after the achievement. Just 2 years later, in 2008, Don Haskins passed away at the age of 78, and almost every major newspaper and sports magazine wrote about this great man and his contribution to the game of basketball and the nation's attitude towards African Americans' participation in collegiate sports. Haskins continued to coach at Texas Western until 1999, although never reached the championships again. Many of his players continued on to the NBA and became future college coaches. A street was named after him in El Paso's east side, and the arena he coached in is now known as the Don Haskins Center. He retired after 1999 and lived out the remainder of his life in El Paso. Don Haskins' approach to basketball epitomizes the nation's approach to equality through civil rights. Coach Haskins created an environment where everyone, regardless of skin color, was treated equally. In this way, the best players were given the opportunity to rise to the top, just as a truly equal nation allows anyone to hold any position and reach any success through merit without discrimination.